Hello, everyone. We are Group 4 from Economic of Integration class. My name is Zhang Sinan. My metric number is 195695. Today, me and my partner will introduce something about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In the first part, let's take a look at the basic information about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, meaning from two aspects, the development stage and the aims. So first, we should know what is Trans-Pacific Partnership. Actually, it's a group of multilateral free trade agreements initiated by the members of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, since 2002. And the aim is to promote trade liberalization in the Asia-Pacific region. It was initiated by 4 members of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, which are New Zealand, Singapore, Chile, and Brunei. On October 5, 2015, the Trans-Pacific Partnership already have 12 members countries, which are Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, the United States, and Vietnam. But the new US President Donald Trump withdrew from TPP in 2017. Next part, I used time to divide the stage into 4 parts. The first part was that in 2005, Chile, New Zealand, Singapore, and Brunei signed the Trans-Pacific Signature Economic Partnership Agreement, also called P4 Agreement, because there are 4 countries. The second stage was the participation of Australia and Peru in 2009, which expanded the Trans-Pacific Partnership and entered the stage of development and growth. In the third stage, Malaysia and Vietnam joined in 2010, when the number of member states increased to 9. Until 2016, the agreement was finally signed. It will set new standards for the trade and investment in one of the fastest growing and most dynamic regions in the world. So now we can see here are 5 main aims about the TPPA. First, supporting the creation and retention of jobs. Second, improving innovation, productivity, and competitiveness, raising living standards, and to reduce poverty in our country. Last one, to promote transparency, good governance, labor, and environmental protection. The goal of TPPA is to create a high standard, ambition, comprehensive, and balanced agreement that will promote economic growth. So that's all from my part. Next, let my friend introduce more about this. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Ilham Syaira binti Maliki and my metric number is 1934 and 21. Now I will explain about the obstacles or issue that facing by the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which is we call them as TPPA. The first issue that facing by TPPA, which is digital policy that benefit big corporation at the expense of the public. The IP chapter will have extensive negative ramification for users' freedom of the expression, right to privacy, and due process, as well as hindering people's abilities to innovate. Other chapters of the agreement encourage personal data to be sent across border with limited protection for privacy and allow foreign corporations to sue country for laws or regulation that promote the public interest. The next issue, which is the lack of transparency. The entire process has shut out multi-stakeholder participations and was shrouded in secrecy. The 12 nations that negotiate the TPP were the United States, Japan, Australia, Peru, Malaysia, Vietnam, New Zealand, Chile, Singapore, Canada, Mexico, and Brunei Darussalam. The TPP contained a chapter on intellectual property covering copyright, trademarks, and patents. And then the official release of the final TPP text confirmed that United States negotiators push for the adoption of the copyright measure for more restrictive than currently required by international treaties, including the controversial anti-counterfeiting trade agreement, which is we call them as ACTA. The next issue, which is pharmaceutical fight. According to the pharmaceutical company, the development of the drug takes about 10 to 50 years, and then the expenses that must be borne for its success, including the loss, is around $1.2 billion. The reward in this investment are the exclusive period in the form of patents. The problem in TPP negotiation is when cheaper new form of generic drugs can be marketed or when the exclusivity ends. In the United States, that time frame is about 12 years, but the most country involved in negotiation want it to be short at 8 years or less. Though Australia is insisting on 5. Next issue, which is car controversy. Considerable media attention has been paid to the outer details of the deal because they prominently feature the United States and Japan, which is the two most significant members of the TPP trade bloc. Japan auto sector is the most closed of all industrial countries, ranking 30 out of 30 across of all OECD nations. Its import penetration rate in 2012 was 5.9% compared to an OECD average of 58%, and the United States import penetration rate of 47.9%. Tokyo has made it quite difficult for foreign countries to sell in Japan by throwing up non-tariff barriers or indirect costs. Washington also has a long protection on its domestic auto industry. The United States currently has 2.5 import tariff on passengers and 25% tax on light trucks. Automotive in general enjoy a high protection across industrial country, but this will start to change with the passage of the TPP. Okay, the last issue, which is trouble with textile. The poster child of globalization have become ensnared in the deal. Only clothing that is wholly sourced and assembled within TPP country will qualify for duty-free sale. This poses particular problem for Vietnam, currently the second largest exporter apparel and footwear into the United States, with more than $30 billion in sale last year. In order to manufacture all those items, however, Vietnam have to buy almost $4.7 billion worth of fabric from China, about a half of total annual imports. By itself, Vietnam is only able to produce a fifth of the fabric that it needs to sell on the world markets. Company in the country to sell to the world markets. Companies in the country like Vietnam have spent decades building out diversified and extensive supply chains. The TPP may well force some countries. The TPP may well force some shift, but the payoff will be huge, which make American taxes on Vietnamese textile imports would fall from as high as 32% down to zero. In fact, all of the TPP country, Vietnam is projected to be the biggest winner relative to the size of its economy, with the expected 10% boost if the TPP goes to effect. Okay, that's it from me.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nia Ahmad Darwish bin Sharifuddin Syed. My metric number is 197404. So next, I will continue to explain about the prospects of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are many prospects for the small to medium enterprise, and TPP agreement also has given the opportunity for these SMEs to compete globally. So by having the agreement with the member countries, there are various programs and initiatives from Malaysian government that increase the capacity, the competitiveness, the prospects for the export, productivity, and so on among the SMEs. So this is the prospects of the TPPA, which has divided into two parts. So first is the prospects for Malaysia SME and also the country members. So first point is the enhance the competitiveness of SMEs. So as the TPP agreement has been done by all of members country, it has given the SMEs the access to new market other than domestic market. In the agreement, it gave all the members in TPPA much higher purchasing power than before. So there's also Federal Agricultural Marketing Authority, which is FAMA, that implement a program to support agro product distributors and to give them skills and knowledge, and also improve their business professionalism. So there are also other various programs to help SMEs that ready to export their product and services in the global market. So next is increase the export capacity of SMEs. So Ministry of International and Industry MITI also had developed many programs that can boost export capacity of the SMEs. So many agencies that involved on this effort, such as also Going Export, provide the guidance to SMEs that have high export potential. And there is also many agencies like WEDP and also BAP, and they have various programs, and the program give them the opportunity to SMEs to be involved on the global markets through the TPPA. So next is encourage innovation to enable SMEs to adopt new ideas, processes, and practices. So Malaysia Industrial Development Finance Berhad MIDF also involved to make sure it can help SMEs to make the innovation. So MIDF had provided like financing assistance through the easy loan scheme for automation and also the modernization. So for example, SME Bank offers Halal Development Fund to support entrepreneurs in the halal market because this market has a huge potential in the global market. So by providing all this program, it encourages the SMEs to have innovation, and later on they can increase their productivity. So next is the members country, which is we can look on overall member country impact. So the World Trade Organization (WTO) had made model simulations that suggest the TPP will raise member country GDP by an average of 1.1% by 2030, with a range of 0.4 to 10%. So all the benefits of the TPP mostly derive from reduction in non-tariff based measures and regulatory measures that benefit the services. Next is the individual member country impact. So TPPA has also simulates the largest gain in GDP are expected in smaller and more open member economies such as Malaysia and Vietnam, which is 8% and 10% by 2030 respectively. So this is said that exporters in these countries would benefit from the lower tariff and also non-tariff barriers in large export markets. So while other firms stand to gain from stronger positions in regional supply chains through the deeper integration. So for NAFTA countries who also TPP members, it is said that TPP's benefit will be more modest, which is in the order of 0.6% of GDP. So this reflects already low existing barriers to their trade, which is mostly among the NAFTA members. So I think that's all from our presentation of Economic Integration Group 4. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Ifizuddin bin Kamaruddin. My matrix number is 193429. So now I'm going to present about the achievements of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreements. Basically, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreements open up new markets opportunity American small business owners and entrepreneurs in 11 foreign countries that are party to the agreements. The 11 foreign countries consist of Chile, Japan, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico, Brunei, Canada, and Australia. So we move to the first achievements of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreements, which is the reductions and eliminations of 18,000 tariffs currently placed on the US export. This includes tariff elimination on all manufacturing goods. For example, car engines and parts currently face up to a 70% tariff, and construction machinery as high as 60%. US made the tariff will fall to zero from levies as high as 47% in some TPP countries. Next, US does not impose the various tariff on the goods that import here, so the TPP enables a competitive playing field for American small business, meaning that there is no tariff or taxes for the goods that import in the US. We move to the second achievements of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is reduce regulatory complexity. Regulatory coherence among TPP nations will help to ease the risk and cost of doing business abroad for small businesses, easing custom administrations and improving trade facilitations will help small business get their goods and services to markets or their customer more quickly, which means it can reduce costs, quicker payments, better cash flow, and greater certainty in doing business in the TPP markets. So the third achievements of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is intellectual property protections. TPP countries will be required to implement intellectual property that make it easier for small business to register their trademarks, patents, copyrights, trade secrets, and other forms of intellectual property. More importantly, strong enforcement systems in the TPP countries are required. Specifically for small business, intellectual property, theft, and costs involved in protecting intellectual property is a major risk and barrier for going global. So, by strengthening intellectual property and living standards, it is helpful for all types of small business that are held back due to the fear of theft or infringements. And the last achievements of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is electronic commerce improvements. This agreement will solve the critical concerns about the e-commerce, which will increase the opportunity for small business to do business in the TPP countries. The TPP promotes open internet policy, and countries cannot block their website of companies that may compete with their own country's businesses. For example, Malaysia cannot block their company website from the TPP countries like Singapore and others, so the market will highly competitive. Next, TPP countries cannot require companies to build a data center as a condition for doing business in this country, and the agreement forbids custom duty on e-transmissions, for example on the software service and other digital products. These provisions reduce the cost of doing business, improve access to the markets, and allow small business that utilize platform to sell goods and service. For example, on the ETSY. ETSY is one of the platforms to sell goods by online like Shopee and Lazada. So indirectly, it can make the TPP markets more competitions. That's all from me. Thank you.